Alright, so today's project is going to be pulling the fuel rail, replacing the factory injectors with some 4-port injectors from K Suspension. I also got one of the DEI heat insulation kits. I haven't had any issues with this Jeep. I haven't wheeled this Jeep yet. On one of my previous Jeeps though, I did have an issue with some hot start, where it just wouldn't start after hot because it vaporized the fuel in the rail. So just to go ahead and get ahead of that, I went ahead and ordered one of the typical DEI heat shield kits. And I figure while I'm doing that, I have to pull the rail to put that kit in anyway. I always wanted 4-port injectors on my old Jeep. I figured I'd go ahead and get those as well. This Jeep doesn't need them, as far as I can tell. It runs and idles pretty well. But it's just one of those while you're in there things, so figured why not. Alright, to clear the fuel from the line more easily, I just pulled the relay for the fuel pump, started it up, let it kill itself off, throw that back in. That should get majority, if not all, the fuel out of the lines, at least all the high pressure fuel out, and make cleanup a little bit easier. A bit toasty in here, because I did just drive this back from the office. Probably does. Oh, is there one more? Ah, there's one more. 4 bolts. Just pulled this off enough to get a little bit more room to work around with the fuel rail. I'm going to go ahead and get a little cap under here and release the pressure on the Schrader valve in case there's any left over from having run it with the fuel pump relay removed. Make sure we're not making too much of a mess here. That's a lot more fuel pressure than I was expecting. Alright, so it doesn't have enough fuel pressure to run. It just has enough to still exist in that rail, so I'm just gonna have it with a rag. Alright, so one thing I am gonna do, just to try and alleviate headache later on, I'm gonna go ahead and mark each of these plugs with the injector number. They should be fairly obvious where they go, but there's always the chance that you accidentally plug one in the wrong way. Alright, this should be free now. Start wiggling out these injectors. Oh. Do I want to pull? Might have to pull this in a minute. Yeah, for right now, I'm just going to wiggle these guys free. Come on. Maybe I don't want to pull the caps off and have it come off the top of the injector, because ideally I'd like to be able to place a rag behind the first injector I pull so that I can catch whatever remaining fuel pressure there is in here. I'm just going to pop these off. Just going to avoid looks pretty grimy in there, so I may actually go ahead and just take a little scraper, try and clean off some of the gunk that is on these injectors. Yeah, so I'm not sure what this is. I don't know if this was like something that was used to aid in seating the injector so they didn't leak whenever they were put in originally, or I don't know if these are necessarily the original injector seals and they haven't never been serviced, but at some point, or if this is just schmutz that built up over time. But it's pretty grody in there. Alright, we got the injectors somewhat cleaned. We've got the DEI kit right here. Got little condoms for each injector. This is the main plate that should sit on top of here. Looks like it just slips over a couple of these head bolts. I shouldn't have to remove anything to set this in. That wire's not. So we're just gonna kind of finagle this into place. Get it set down in there. I may have to pull this wiring group out. I don't think I'm supposed to pull the throttle body for it, but if I have to, I will. It's not too big of a deal. Alright, got that installed. There is no need to pull the throttle body. You can definitely slip underneath there. It does help to pull this off. I popped the sensor off the thermostat housing, the water temp sensor plug, just to give me a little bit more room to remove this round. Pulls right up, sets in place, push right down. There's a couple holes you can line up for some bolts. It's not perfectly cut, but it looks like you can just kind of pull on it. It's not the strongest material. So you can just kind of pull on it, pull it through, and get it where it needs to be. And yeah, pretty straightforward. So next up, I'm going to go ahead, like I said, and pull the first injector, get the rest of the pressure off this line, and then just swap those one at a time. I am going to grease the O-rings on the new injectors with a little bit of dielectric grease. You can use like assembly lube or just any kind of, something just to keep them from tearing whenever you put them back in. I just happen to have dielectric grease on hand, so that's what I'm going to use. Alright, let's take this injector clip off. Try not to put too much weird pressure on this fuel rail, the fuel lines. Alright, let's see how fun this goes. Huh, basically nothing. Alright, not there it is. There it goes. I need a service card. It's like gonna be probably only just my second video, but I figure I'm doing an amazing job as a YouTuber at this point in my career. So if anybody wants to sponsor me with a service card, that'd be great. And they all have the O-rings on top, so that all looks good. Definitely still some gas in the line. So before we worry about the rest of these, I'm going to go ahead and get this put on. It's got a couple of slits in here for these brackets to come through. It's got a couple holes, which is for that line there and the Schrader valve. Like I said before, I don't have the tool to remove that, so I'm actually just going to take a razor blade and cut this around that, and I hope it doesn't fray too much. Again, this is just some fine details. This is not necessary, but hopefully it will help prevent some minor inconveniences down the road. Yeah, definitely do the tabs first. You just gotta kind of yank on it to get the get it over the fuel injector holes. Alright, now that is all nice and insulated. So I'm going to set the injectors in and then put the rail on the injectors rather than putting the injectors in the rail and putting that back on. So I'm going to get those prepped, get those greased, and then we'll get those popped in. Ignore what I said before. Definitely put the injectors on the rail before you pop the rail in. Don't put the rail on the injectors. That was dumb. Alright, lots of noises and stuff because everything's not hooked up. Vacuum lines aren't hooked up, so there's hissing noises and all that good shit. That was a very encouraging start. So I'm gonna let this sit. This little part of the fuel rail is still a little bit damp from all the fuel spilling on it because I didn't clear the rail properly. So we're gonna let that dry off so I don't catch this on fire and burn down my Jeep in my garage and the whole house. But yeah, so we'll come back after a couple hours because I've got some errands I have to run, and then we'll put it all back together, check it out, see how she do. Back from running my errands. It's been sitting out for a while. Everything seems to be nice and dry. Doesn't smell too much like gas. So we're gonna get it all put back together. Now we're ready to start her up and take her around the block after I clean all this shit off my hands. Alright, so start up nice and quick. Seems to be idling pretty smooth. The first time I started, it had a really high idle for a few seconds, but that seems to be resolved pretty quickly. Got the camera just chilling on a tripod and fold down back seats. We'll see how well this works. We're just going around the block, right back. There's every likelihood that that camera is going to fall over at some point, so. And when I do the highway, I will not be able to because of that. Yeah, because exactly that. All right, so we got the fuel injector kit done. Like I said, seems to be running great. Had a really high idle on the first start, but cleared right up pretty quickly. Drove well around the block. I'm going to take it on the highway in a few minutes and just see how it feels there, now that I know there's no fuel leaks or anything from just going around the block. But other than the Big 7 wiring kit that I have sitting on my bench right now from K Suspension, the first big mod I have that I've started working on so far is this 825 right here. It's in the middle of a KJ brake swap. I've got most of the stuff I need. I just need the mounting hardware for the brackets, and I need the soft lines to the caliper, and then the parking brake lines. And then this will be ready to swap in. It's already got the right gears in it. That's in the front axle. Not doing any gears or lockers or anything in it right now. This is a 27 spline, not a 29 spline. So my plan is whenever I do go to get this locked, I'm going to get a carrier for a 29 spline and then just put 29 spline axles in it. And that should be basically the same as if it came as a 29 spline from the factory. Or at least that's my understanding. If anyone knows that won't work, or I said something really stupid there, to let me know. Like I said in my first video, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of learning as I go, asking questions to people. So if you hear me say something dumb, call me out on it, let people learn. Just don't be a dick about it. Like I said in the first video, overall goal with the Jeep is to get it on a 4.5 inch OME core 4x4 lift with 35s and notch fender flares. I think on the process to that, what I may do in the meantime is go ahead and order the notch flares. Supposedly you can run up to a 32 inch tire on stock suspension with that. And what I would like to do is do that and get some takeoff JK or JL tires and some adapters and run those for right now, because that will give me a wheel large enough to clearance for the WJ brakes that I want to put on the front, very similar to what Harder and Bacon did on his YJ. Let me put a lot of the other mods that I want to put on before I get the lift, rather than doing the lift and having to do a lot of the supporting mods after the fact. The big WJ brake kit being the main one. Those will not clear on a 15 inch wheel. I reached out to a couple people who sell kits and they say they all need at least a 17, and the back spacing can be weird, but if I'm going to use adapters to run a JL or JK wheel, I can just get an adapter that's thick enough to set that back spacing at what it needs to be. Either way, that's not going to be anytime soon. First step is to get this wiring kit on. Like I said before, I want to finish building up this axle. Got a few more parts I need to order before that's ready to swap in. This is not going to get swapped in until after I go wheeling for the first time for sure. But then after I wheel it for the first time, I'll see if there's any additional maintenance that I need to do whenever I do my big maintenance thing. I'm going to go through and replace all the idler pulleys, replace the accessory belt, replace the spark plugs, rotor and all that stuff. Nothing's wrong with any of that right now, but I know it's all good, so I can put that into a spares box, have new parts on there, and then have trail spares with me in case anything dies. I'm going to do like the crank position sensor and a couple other sensors like that as well, just to have the peace of mind of having those spares with me. Otherwise, I just want to make sure four-wheel drive is working well. I've done it on some dirt roads, but nothing in a situation where it's like really had traction limited to one wheel or anything like that, or any kind of like hard loading traction scenarios. So I'm going to take it on some of the easier trails out at Uwari. My dad has a JK
two-door JK that he bought last year that he hasn't wheeled yet. He's going to bring that out. We'll test both those out and see how they go. But yeah, so that's the whole plan right now. Keeps driving good, and hopefully we'll keep driving that way, and hopefully the next video will either be putting that wiring kit in, or will be when we take it out to URI for the first time and start wheeling it. We'll see y'all then.